Nurse Emily had seen it all in her 15 years of service. Patients screaming in pain, patients weeping, patients cursing their fate and demanding to know, why me? She'd witnessed wealthy families abandon their elders in expensive hospitals. She'd seen families with nothing give their sick relatives care with a devotion that would break your heart. She'd seen doctors fail and nurses give up. She'd witnessed pain in every form imaginable, but she'd never seen what she saw that Tuesday when she arrived at the Carter estate. And the first thing she did was find Ashley and ask her a single question. Who cares for your mother when I'm not here? That question would change everything. It would change the way Ashley looked at the housekeeper who had been cleaning her home for 3 years. It would change how she understood money, medication, care. And it would forever change the life of a woman who hadn't slept a full night in 4 years. But to understand what Emily saw that morning, you first need to know the whole story. And I'm warning you, this story will make you question everything you think you know about money, medicine, and what it really means to care for someone. Ashley Carter was 42 years old, and she had built an empire. Not just any empire, a pharmaceutical empire. Her company manufactured medications for chronic pain, pills that cost hundreds of dollars, treatments that promised relief to millions. Isn't life ironic? The woman who sold pain medication couldn't alleviate her own mother's pain. Eleanor was 61 years old. She had been a dance instructor for 35 years. Ballroom, swing, and jive. Her feet knew every rhythm, every step, every turn. Her students adored her. They said Eleanor didn't teach dance. She taught people how to feel the music with their entire body. But 8 years ago, everything changed. It started with a pain in her shoulders. That just wouldn't go away. Then it was her back, her hips, her knees. And then, the pain spread through her entire body, like a silent wildfire. Severe fibromyalgia. If you've never heard that word, let me explain it in a way you'll understand. Imagine someone is beating your entire body, not just once, all day long, every day, for years. Imagine that even the slightest touch of the bed sheets feels like sandpaper on burnt skin. Imagine that the simple act of getting out of bed requires the same energy as running a marathon. Now, imagine that no doctor can explain why you hurt so much, and that many don't even believe you. That is fibromyalgia, and Eleanor had it in its cruelest form. There's something that people don't understand about fibromyalgia. It's not just pain. It's an invisible torture. It's waking up every morning, not knowing if you'll be able to walk, or if your legs will betray you. It's canceling plans because your body decided it won't cooperate today. It's seeing the doubt in people's eyes, because there's no visible wound to explain your suffering. It's hearing doctors tell you that it's all in your head. It's feeling alone even when you're surrounded by people, because no one can see your pain. No one can feel what you feel, and very few believe you. Eleanor had lived through all of that. She'd watched doctors review her tests and tell her that everything was normal. She'd heard family members suggest that maybe she just needed to exercise or think positive. She'd felt the frustration of knowing something was wrong with her body, but not being able to prove it. Until finally, after years of searching for answers, a rheumatologist diagnosed her severe fibromyalgia. She finally had a name for her torment. But having a name didn't mean having a cure, because fibromyalgia has no cure. It's only managed, controlled, survived. And Eleanor had been trying to survive for 8 years. The first 4 years were difficult, but manageable. She could walk, she could cook, she could even dance a little on good days. But the last 4 years were hell. The pain became debilitating, constant, relentless. Eleanor went from being the woman who taught people to dance to being the woman who couldn't walk to the bathroom without crying, and the nights were the worst. Every night, without exception. Eleanor would wake up between 2 and 4 in the morning, with pain so intense that her body's only response was to cry. not quiet sobbing, real crying. Groans that could be heard throughout the whole house. 4 years, 1,460 nights, all the same. The pain, the tears, the desperation, and Ashley knew it. That's why she had spent a fortune on the best specialists in the country: rheumatologists, neurologists, chronic pain specialists, acupuncturists, chiropractors, experts in alternative medicine, 15 specialists in 4 years, each with their theory, each with their treatment, each with a bill for thousands of dollars, and none of them had managed to help Eleanor sleep one night without crying. The first was a famous rheumatologist who charged $1,000 per consultation. He told her to try a new medication that had just come on the market. Eleanor took it religiously, and for 6 months, the only result was a stomach ulcer that landed her in the hospital for 2 weeks. The second was a chronic pain specialist who traveled from another country. He recommended injections of an experimental compound directly into the points of greatest pain. Eleanor endured 20 injections in 2 months. The pain didn't diminish. Only the fear of needles was added. The third was a chiropractor who promised results in 60 days. After 90 days and thousands of dollars, Eleanor was still the same. And so, one after another, the specialists failed, each with their revolutionary theory, each with their innovative treatment, each with their exorbitant bill, and each leaving Eleanor exactly as she was before, or worse. Because each failure took away a little more hope. Each failed treatment stole a piece of faith, until it reached a point where Eleanor stopped believing that anything could help her. She simply accepted that pain would be her companion forever, and that the nights of crying were part of her new normal. Ashley felt a guilt that was eating her from the inside out. She was the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. She had access to the best medications on the market. She could pay for any experimental treatment, and she couldn't help her own mother. She compensated with money for what she couldn't give in time. She hired nurses 24 hours a day, 3 shifts of 8 hours each. The Carter estate transformed into a miniature hospital. Monitors, medications, wheelchairs, everything money could buy. And yet, Eleanor continued to weep every night. Ashley tried to visit her every week, but each visit was a reminder of her failure. She saw her mother in bed and thin, with dark circles under her eyes, with that glint of suffering in her eyes that never faded. And she felt powerless. She, who could close million-dollar deals. She, who could get governments to approve her medications. She, who could move mountains in the business world, couldn't give her own mother one night of peace. And the worst part was that Eleanor never complained, never asked her for anything, never reproached her for working so much, never made her feel guilty. She only told her that she was okay, that she shouldn't worry, that she should continue with her work. And that made Ashley feel even worse, because she knew her mother was lying. She knew that every night was hell. She knew that behind that forced smile, there was a pain she couldn't imagine, and she couldn't do anything about it, except pay him and pay him and pay, hoping that one day some treatment would work, hoping for a miracle that never came. If this video is making you reflect on someone you know, someone who cares without expecting anything in return, stay until the end, because what you're about to discover will change the way you see the world. Now, let me introduce you to the person who would change everything. Abigail was 48 years old and had worked as a housekeeper since she was 16. 32 years cleaning other people's houses, washing other people's clothes, cooking for families who barely looked at her. She had learned to be invisible, to enter and exit rooms without anyone noticing her presence, to listen to conversations without participating, to see problems without commenting, to be present without existing. She was good at her job, meticulous, silent, reliable. Ashley had hired her 3 years ago to take care of the general cleaning of the estate, not to take care of her mother, That's what the professional nurses were for. Abigail was supposed to clean, nothing more. And during the first year, that was exactly what she did. But there was something that Ashley didn't know about Abigail, something that no one in that house knew. Abigail's mother had died of fibromyalgia 12 years ago. Not directly from the disease. Fibromyalgia doesn't kill, but the constant suffering, the lack of adequate treatment, the depression that came after, all that consumed her until her heart simply gave out. Abigail had cared for her mother during the last 5 years of her life, without money for expensive doctors, without access to brand-name medications, without private nurses, only her hands, and a love that didn't need a diploma. During those 5 years, Abigail had learned something that no specialist had taught her. She had learned to read the pain in her mother's body as if it were a map. She knew that when her mother touched her left shoulder in a certain way, the pain was in the muscles of her neck. She knew that when she closed her eyes very tightly. It was the migraine that always accompanied the fibromyalgia. She knew that when she moved her feet under the sheets. It was because the cramps were starting, and she had learned to respond to each signal. Gentle massages in specific points, compresses of exact temperature, slow movements that relaxed the muscles without causing more pain. She didn't have certification. She didn't have a degree. She didn't have anyone's recognition. But she had something that no nursing course could teach. She had the experience of having loved someone who suffered the same. And she had something more. She had the memory of her mother teaching her everything she knew. The nights when her mum couldn't sleep and Abigail stayed awake with her. The mornings when they prepared the oils and compresses together. The afternoons when her mother explained why certain points of the body were connected with others. Her mother hadn't studied medicine. She was a country woman who had learned from her grandmother, who in turn had learned from previous generations. Ancestral knowledge that was passed from mother to daughter. Techniques that no university taught, remedies that no pharmacy sold, and a love for care that was priceless. When her mother died, Abigail thought that all that knowledge had been lost, that there would no longer be any point in knowing how to prepare oils if there was no one to care for, that all those massage techniques would remain stored in her memory unused. But destiny had other plans. When Abigail saw Eleanor for the first time, something broke inside her. It was like seeing her mother again. The same tired eyes, the same hunched posture, the same attempt to smile despite the pain, and the same nights of weeping that were heard through the walls. During the first months, Abigail didn't do anything. It wasn't her job. It wasn't her place. But every night, while she cleaned the hallways of the estate, she heard Eleanor's groans, and every night, she remembered her own mother. One day, she found something in the trash in the nurse's room, a bottle of industrialized lavender oil, barely used, discarded, because it wasn't giving results. Abigail looked at it and shook her head. She knew something that the nurses didn't know. Industrialized lavender oil was useless. The chemicals they used to process it eliminated the properties that really mattered. Her mother had taught her that. The oil had to be fresh, prepared at home, with real flowers, not with artificial essences. That night, Abigail arrived at her small apartment and searched through her things until she found what she was looking for, the stone mortar that had belonged to her mother. And the next day, she bought fresh lavender at the market. She spent 3 nights preparing the oil exactly as her mother had taught her, macerating the flowers, filtering the liquid, letting it rest in the dark, and when it was ready, she took it to the estate in a small, unlabeled bottle. She left it in the nurse's room with a simple note, "For Eleanor, on the feet before sleeping." Nurse Emily was the first nurse to use it, and she noticed something strange. That night, Eleanor took an hour longer to start crying. An hour doesn't seem like much, but when you've been waking up at the same time every night for 4 years, an hour is a miracle. Nurse Emily didn't say anything. She thought it was a coincidence, but she used the oil again the following night. And again, Eleanor took longer to cry. A week later, the vial was empty, and another appeared in the same spot, with the same note. Nurse Emily started to wonder who was leaving these mysterious vials, but she was so busy with her other patients that she never investigated. She just used them, and mentally noted that they seemed to work better than all the expensive oils Ashley had bought. If you're watching this on your phone while caring for someone, I want you to know that I see you, and that what you do matters more than you can imagine. Meanwhile, something was changing at the Carter estate, and no one noticed, except Emily. The nurse who had spent 15 years seeing sick bodies had noticed something different in Eleanor. It wasn't just the lavender oil. It was something in her eyes, in the way she moved her hands, in the way she breathed when she thought no one was watching. Eleanor seemed less defeated, as if something was holding her up, as if she had found a piece of hope in some place that Emily couldn't see. The nights were still difficult, the crying continued, but there was something different, a lightness, a patience, an acceptance that hadn't been there before. Emily started to pay more attention, and what she discovered left her speechless. But that's the part of the story that's going to change everything. What Emily saw that Tuesday morning, the scene that made her look for Ashley immediately, the words she said to her, all of that comes later. And I promise you, when you hear it, you're going to understand why this story is different from all the ones you've heard. Because it's not about money. It's not about medication. It's not about titles or degrees. It's about something much simpler and much more powerful. It's about hands that know pain because they've already felt it, and hearts that care because they don't know how to do anything else. 15 specialists had failed. Millions of dollars had been spent, and Eleanor was still suffering. But something was changing, something silent, something invisible, something that not even Ashley, with all her power and all her money, had noticed. And soon, everything was going to come to light. What no one knew was what Hazel did when everyone was asleep. Ashley lived in another wing of the estate. The night nurses stayed in a room near Eleanor. But at 3 in the morning, most of them were asleep. Don't blame them. 8-hour shifts caring for a patient with chronic pain exhaust anyone. And after months of the same thing, the body gets used to it and looks for rest where it can. But Hazel wasn't sleeping at 3 in the morning, because 3 in the morning was when Eleanor suffered the most. It had started unintentionally. One night, a year and a half ago, Hazel had forgotten her purse in the kitchen and had gone back to get it. The estate was silent, the lights off, only the sound of crickets outside. And then she heard it, the crying. It was coming from Eleanor's room, a low, constant moan, like that of an injured animal that no longer has the strength to cry out. Hazel stopped in the hallway, her whole body tensed. It was the same sound her mother had made 12 years ago, the same cry of helplessness, of pain that cannot be explained, of suffering that has no end. Her feet carried her toward the door before her mind could stop them. The night nurse was asleep on the couch in the hallway, sound asleep. Hazel opened the door carefully and saw Eleanor. She was sitting on the bed, hugging her knees, rocking gently back and forth. Her eyes were closed. Tears were running down her cheeks, and from her mouth came that sound that Hazel knew so well, the sound of someone who has stopped fighting, without thinking. Hazel went closer. She sat on the edge of the bed and did what she had done 1,000 times with her mother. She took Eleanor's feet in her hands. Eleanor opened her eyes, surprised, but she said nothing, and Hazel began to massage, not with force, not with technique learned in books, with the memory of her hands, with the knowledge that comes from having loved someone who suffered the same. She pressed the exact points, the arches of the feet where tension accumulates, the heels where back pain is reflected, the toes where stress hides, and as she massaged, she began to hum an old song, a swing tune her mother used to dance to, the same one she put on when the pain was too much and she needed to remember that there had been a life before the illness. Eleanor stopped crying, not immediately, but little by little. The moans turned into deep breaths. The tense body relaxed, the tears stopped falling, and for the first time in months, Eleanor fell asleep before 4 in the morning. When she woke up, Hazel was gone, and Eleanor thought it had been a dream. But the next night, the dream was repeated, and the next, and the next. Thus began a secret routine that would last almost 2 years, every night. When the clock struck 2:45, Hazel sneaked through the hallways of the estate. She passed the sleeping nurse, entered Eleanor's room, and did what none of the 15 specialists had achieved. She gave her peace, not healing. Fibromyalgia has no cure. Hazel knew that better than anyone, but she gave her something that medicine cannot prescribe: presence, contact. The warmth of hands that know what pain is, because they have already felt it. Over time, Hazel began to bring other things. The heating pad that she herself had sewn for her mother. It was simple, a cloth cover filled with flax seeds. Nothing special to look at, but when heated in the microwave for exactly 2 minutes and 40 seconds, it maintained the perfect temperature for almost an hour. Not too hot to burn sensitive skin, not too cold to be useless. The exact heat that the muscles tensed by fibromyalgia needed to relax. None of the expensive heating pads that Ashley had bought worked so well, because they were designed by engineers who had never felt the pain they were trying to relieve. And Hazel's pillow had been designed by a daughter's love for her mother. Each night, Hazel put the pillow on Eleanor's back while massaging her feet, and each night, Eleanor fell asleep a little faster. But Hazel didn't stop there. She had started carrying a notebook, a small, spiral notebook, bought at the cheapest stationery store in the neighborhood, and every night, before leaving, Amy meticulously noted something down: where it hurt Eleanor most that day, which spots were the tensest, how she reacted when Amy massaged her left shoulder versus her right. It was a map of Eleanor's pain, a record of patterns that no doctor had ever taken the time to observe. Because doctors saw Eleanor for 30 minutes per appointment, they asked generic questions, prescribed pills. But Amy saw her every night, touched her body every night, felt the changes every night, and over time, she learned to predict the pain before it even arrived. If her neck hurts more today, tomorrow it will be her hip. If the pain starts in her feet, it will rise towards her knees. If the tension is on the left side, you have to work the right side to compensate. No one had taught her this. It wasn't in any book. It was knowledge born from observation, from patience, from repeated care, night after night after night. And it worked. Not perfectly. Eleanor still had bad nights, still cried sometimes, still suffered. But the good nights started to become more frequent than the bad. And that, for someone with severe fibromyalgia, was a miracle. But the real change came when Amy discovered something about Eleanor's past. It was by accident, one night, while massaging Eleanor's feet. Amy noticed that the elderly woman's toes were moving in a particular way, as if they were following a rhythm. Amy stopped humming and paid attention. Eleanor's toes were moving as if they were counting steps. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, the rhythm of the waltz. And then Amy understood. She looked up information, asked other housekeepers, researched in silence, and discovered that Eleanor had been a dance teacher, 35 years teaching others to move their bodies with the music. And now she couldn't even walk to the bathroom. That night, Amy went home and started searching. She found lists of songs from the 1980s online: ballroom, swing, and jive. The songs that Eleanor would have used in her classes, and she created a playlist. Not just any playlist, a specific playlist. Songs with slow rhythms. Nothing too fast that would activate the nervous system. Nothing too sad that would sink her spirits. The perfect tempo to relax without depressing, to remember without hurting. And the next night, instead of humming, Amy put on music, very quietly, almost inaudible. Just enough for Eleanor's body to recognize it. And something magical happened. Eleanor's eyes lit up, for the first time in years. Something that wasn't pain crossed her face. It was nostalgia. It was joy. It was the memory of a life that had existed before the pain took it all away. And as the music played, Eleanor's toes began to move, counting steps that her body could no longer take, dancing in her mind while her body rested. And the tears that fell that night were not of pain. They were of something completely different, something that Eleanor had forgotten she could feel. Hope. Now, I'm going to tell you something that you're going to want to share with someone you love. Nurse Emily had started to notice strange things. First, it was the lavender oil that mysteriously appeared. Then she noticed that Eleanor seemed less exhausted in the mornings. Her vital signs were more stable, her blood pressure lower, her heart rate less erratic. But the strangest thing was this. Sometimes, when Emily arrived for her morning shift, she found a heating pad in Eleanor's bed that she hadn't put there. And sometimes, very early in the morning, she thought she heard music coming from the room. Old music, dance songs. But when she entered, everything was silent. Emily began to wonder if she was going crazy, or if something was happening in that house that she didn't understand. One day, she decided to arrive earlier than normal, not to work, to observe. She parked outside the Carter estate at 5 in the morning, 2 hours before her shift, and waited. At 5:30, she saw a figure come out of the service entrance. It was the housekeeper, the quiet woman who barely spoke, the one who always kept her eyes down and never got involved in anything. Emily watched her walk towards the bus stop and noticed something in her hand, a small, spiral-bound notebook. Emily didn't think much of it, but she stored it in her memory. That morning, when she went to check on Eleanor, she noticed something different. The elderly woman was asleep, deeply asleep, with an expression of peace that Emily hadn't seen on her face in months. And a subtle aroma floated in the air, fresh lavender, not the artificial kind from expensive oils, real lavender. Emily began to connect the dots, the mysterious oils, the heating pad, the music she thought she heard, the housekeeper leaving early, the notebook. Something was happening, and Emily was going to find out what it was. But for that, she needed to see with her own eyes, and what she saw that Tuesday morning would change everything. It would change the way Ashley understood care. It would change Amy's future, and it would forever change the life of a woman who had forgotten what it was like to sleep without crying. But before I tell you what happened that Tuesday, you need to understand something else. You need to understand why Amy never said anything, why she kept her secret for almost 2 years, why she preferred to care in silence rather than receive recognition. And the answer is both simpler and more complicated than you imagine. Amy wasn't doing this for Eleanor. Well, yes, she was doing it for her. But not only for her, she was doing it for her mother. Every time she touched Eleanor's feet, she felt her mother's feet. Every time she heard the nightly crying, she heard her mother's crying. Every time she managed to get Eleanor to sleep a little more peacefully, she felt that she was somehow healing a wound that had been open for 12 years, the wound of not having been able to do more. Her mother had died suffering, without access to expensive treatments, without private nurses, without brand-name medications. She had died in poverty, with only her daughter's hands to ease the pain. And Amy had always wondered if it had been enough, if her love had been enough, if her hands had been enough. Caring for Eleanor was her way of answering that question, of proving to herself that what she had done for her mother had mattered. that the hands of a daughter who loves can do what millions of dollars cannot. That's why she didn't seek recognition. That's why she didn't want anyone to know, because this wasn't just a job. It wasn't charity. And it wasn't simply kindness. It was healing. The healing of her own broken heart. And that healing required silence. But the silence was about to be shattered. Because Nurse Emily had decided to uncover the truth, and what she found would be impossible to ignore. It was Tuesday, 3:45 in the morning. Emily had arrived at work 4 hours earlier than usual. She'd parked on a side street where her car couldn't be seen from the Carter estate, and had entered through the service entrance, which they always left unlocked. Her heart was pounding in her chest. She didn't know exactly what she expected to find, but after weeks of piecing together subtle clues, she needed answers. She walked down the hallway in silence, the cold marble floors beneath her feet, the lights all off. The only sound was the tick-tock of the antique clock in the living room. When she reached the hallway leading to Eleanor's room, she heard something. Music, very soft, almost imperceptible. An old swing tune, one of those that played on the radio 40 years ago. Emily stopped. The door to Eleanor's room was ajar. A dim light spilled through the crack. And then she saw it. What Emily saw that night was etched into her memory forever. Eleanor was sitting in bed, propped up against pillows. Her eyes were closed, but her face didn't show pain. It showed peace. And at her feet, sitting on the edge of the bed, was Maria, the housekeeper. The quiet woman who barely spoke. The invisible woman everyone overlooked. She held Eleanor's feet in her hands and massaged them with slow, precise, almost hypnotic movements. On the nightstand there was a heating pad, a small bottle of oil, an open notebook with handwritten notes. And from Maria's phone came that music, that old swing tune that made Eleanor's toes tap, counting dance steps that her body could no longer perform. But what made Emily hold her breath wasn't any of that. It was what Maria was doing with her mouth. She was singing, not the lyrics of the song. She was inventing words, soft words, words of comfort, words that only a mother would say to a sick child. It's okay now. The pain is going away. You're safe. You're not alone. Sleep peacefully. I'm here. And as she sang, a tear rolled down Maria's cheek, a silent tear that she didn't bother to wipe away, because her hands were busy healing what 15 specialists couldn't. Emily stood frozen at the doorway. 15 years of her career, thousands of patients, hundreds of nights in hospitals, and she'd never seen anything like this. It wasn't medical technique. It wasn't professional treatment. It wasn't anything that could be taught in nursing school. It was love, pure love, without expecting anything in return, without seeking recognition, without looking for gratitude, the kind of love that heals what medicine cannot. Emily stepped back silently. She didn't want to interrupt that moment. It was too sacred, too private, too beautiful to ruin with her presence. But she knew she had to do something. Ashley needed to know, not to punish Maria, not to fire her for doing something that wasn't her job, but so she could understand, so she could finally see what had been happening under her own roof without her realizing it. That morning, when Ashley arrived at the estate after a business meeting, Emily was waiting for her. "Miss Carter, I need to speak with you. It's about your mother." Ashley's face hardened immediately. It was always the same. "Bad news. The pain is worse. We need another specialist. We have to change the treatment." But Emily shook her head. "It's not bad news. It's different." And she told her everything. The mysterious oils, the heating pad, the music at night, the notebook with notes, and what she'd seen at 3:45 in the morning. The housekeeper, massaging her mother's feet, singing, crying while she did it. Ashley listened without saying anything. Her face went from confusion to disbelief, from disbelief to astonishment, from astonishment to something she couldn't name. When Emily finished speaking, Ashley only had one question. "How long has she been doing this?" Emily hesitated. "From what I've observed, almost 2 years. 2 years. 2 years of sleepless nights, of silent care, of invisible love. While Ashley traveled the world closing deals, while she paid fortunes to specialists who didn't help, while she felt guilty for not being able to help her mother, the housekeeper had been doing what no one else could. Ashley felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. All her life she'd believed that money was the solution to every problem, that if you paid enough you could fix anything. And here was proof that she was wrong. 15 specialists had failed with their degrees and their expensive treatments, and a housekeeper without formal education was achieving the impossible with her hands, with her time, with her heart. That night, Ashley didn't go to sleep in her room. She hid in the hallway, in the shadows, where no one could see her. And she waited. At 2:45, she heard soft footsteps. It was Maria. She walked down the hallway carefully, avoiding the creaky floorboards. She carried her heating pad in one hand and her phone in the other. Ashley watched her pass without making a sound and followed her. What she saw that night broke her heart, not from sadness, from something completely different. She saw Maria enter her mother's room. She saw her turn on a small lamp, how she warmed the heating pad in the bathroom microwave, how she prepared the lavender oil. She saw her sit on the bed, how she took her mother's feet in her hands. And she saw how her mother, who had been suffering for 4 years, relaxed her face in a matter of minutes, as if the simple touch of those hands was a painkiller more powerful than any pill. And then Maria began to sing, softly, almost whispering, a made-up lullaby. "Sleep, sleep, the pain is going away. Sleep, sleep, I'm here." And Ashley, hidden in the doorway, began to cry, because she understood. She finally understood something that she should have known all along. Love can't be bought. Healing is priceless, and true care doesn't come from hired nurses or paid specialists. It comes from people who love without expecting anything in return. Ashley waited until Consuelo finished, until her mother was sound asleep, until Consuelo gathered her things, jotted something in her notebook, and prepared to leave. And then she spoke. "Consuelo." The cleaning lady froze. Her face went pale. Her hands began to tremble. She thought she was going to be fired, that she had crossed a line, that she had done something she shouldn't have. "Miss Ashley, I can explain." But Ashley didn't let her finish. She approached her, looked her straight in the eyes, and said something Consuelo didn't expect. "Thank you." That single word, "thank you." And then she broke down. The CEO of a pharmaceutical empire, the woman who led meetings with executives from around the world, the person who controlled millions of dollars in medications. She collapsed, sobbing, into the arms of her cleaning lady. "Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know. I didn't know." Consuelo didn't know what to do. No one had embraced her like that in years. No one had thanked her for anything. She simply stood there, holding Ashley as she cried. And in that moment, the invisible walls that separated the millionaire from the maid crumbled. They were no longer employer and employee. They were two women united by love for someone who was suffering. Two daughters, albeit in different ways. When Ashley finally calmed down, she asked a question. "Why didn't you tell me?" Consuelo lowered her gaze. "It wasn't my place, miss. I just cleaned the house." "No, you don't just clean the house. You've been caring for my mother better than all the doctors I pay." Consuelo shook her head. "It wasn't for you, or for your mother. Well, it was for her. But..." She stopped. The words wouldn't come, but Ashley understood. Your mother? She asked softly. Consuelo nodded. Tears began to fall. She died 12 years ago. Fibromyalgia. We didn't have money for doctors. It was just me, and every night when you care for my mother, I feel like I'm with her again. Silence filled the room, a silence that spoke louder than any words. Ashley finally understood something fundamental. She hadn't hired a cleaning lady. She had been blessed with an angel disguised as a quiet woman with hands roughened by years of work. An angel who healed the pain because she knew the pain, who loved unconditionally because she knew what it was like to lose the one you love, and who gave everything without asking for anything because that was the only language her heart knew. That night, for the first time in 4 years, Eleanor slept through the night without crying. Not 1 hour more than usual. Not 2 hours. The entire night. From 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. 9 hours without excruciating pain, without groans, without tears. When the morning nurse entered the room, she thought something was wrong. So much silence was impossible. Eleanor always woke up crying. But there she was, asleep, with an expression of peace that the nurse had never seen. Emily, arriving for her shift, approached to check, and when she saw Eleanor sleeping soundly, she smiled, because she knew the magic had worked. Not the magic of medications, not the magic of treatments, the magic of love. Emily had seen many things in her career. She had seen treatments that cost fortunes fail miserably. She had seen home remedies work better than laboratory medications. She had seen wealthy families abandon their sick, and she had seen humble people give everything for their loved ones. But she had never seen anything like what was happening at the Carter estate. A cleaning lady, without any degree or certification, was achieving what 15 specialists with decades of experience had failed to do. And she wasn't doing it for money. She wasn't doing it for recognition. She wasn't doing it out of obligation. She was doing it for love, the purest love that Emily had seen in 15 years of her career. The love of someone who cares because caring is the only thing she knows how to do. The love of someone who heals because she has felt the pain herself. The love of someone who gives everything without asking for anything in return. Emily thought about all the hospitals where she had worked, about all the patients she had seen suffer, about all the treatments she had administered without results, and she wondered how many of those patients simply needed what Consuelo was giving Eleanor. Not pills, not injections, not expensive equipment, just presence, just contact, just love. It was a question that would haunt her for a long time. But this story doesn't end with that night. It ends with what happened afterward. Ashley convened a meeting with Consuelo the next day, not in the kitchen, where they usually discussed household matters, in her personal office, the one she used for important meetings. Consuelo entered with trembling hands. She thought that despite the thank you from the night before, she was still going to be fired, that she had crossed boundaries, that she had done something inappropriate, but Ashley had other plans. "Sit down, Consuelo. We need to talk." Consuelo sat on the edge of the chair, ready to hear her sentence. "I want to offer you something." Consuelo looked at her, uncomprehending. "I want to officially hire you as my mother's caregiver, with a salary 3 times higher than what you earn now, with full health benefits, with paid vacation, with everything you deserve." Consuelo's eyes widened. "But miss, I have no education. I'm not a nurse, and I don't have any certificates." Ashley shook her head. "I have 15 certificates from specialists who couldn't do what you do every night. The degrees don't matter to me. What you have can't be learned in any school." Consuelo remained silent for a moment, and then she said something Ashley didn't expect. "No." "No?" Ashley was confused. She had just offered her triple her salary, and she had been rejected. "I don't want to be an official caregiver." "Why?" Consuelo took a breath. "Because if you turn it into my job, it will stop being what it is." Ashley didn't understand. "What I do for your mother, I do for love, for my mom, for her, for me. If you pay me to do it, it won't be the same. It will be an obligation." And obligations don't heal. Ashley leaned back in her chair. Never in her life had anyone rejected money like that. In her world of business, everything had a price. Everything could be bought. Everything was negotiated. And here was this simple woman, this cleaning lady, teaching her a lesson that no MBA could teach. Some things lose their power when you put a price on them. "So what do you want?" Ashley finally asked. Consuelo paused for a moment. "I want to keep cleaning the house," she said. "That's my job, and I like it. But I want permission to care for Eleanor when she needs it. No fixed hours and no rules, just when my heart tells me to." Ashley smiled. For the first time in a long time, she really smiled. "You've got it," Ashley replied. "But at least, let me give you something." Consuelo looked at her suspiciously. "No more money," she warned. "Not money," Ashley said. "Something better." Ashley opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a folder. "Here's the contract for the house where you live," Ashley announced. "As of today, it's yours, paid for, no mortgage, no rent, yours, forever." Consuelo's eyes filled with tears. "Miss Carter, that's too much," she stammered. "It's less than you deserve," Ashley insisted. "And there's something else." Ashley took out another folder. "This is a life insurance policy, Bessie, for you," Ashley explained. "If anything happens to you, your family will be protected. And this is a retirement fund for when you can no longer work, all paid for and all yours." Consuelo couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the documents. Never in her life had she had security. Never had she known what tomorrow would bring. She had always lived day to day, hoping her luck wouldn't run out. And now, this woman who had ignored her for 3 years was giving her what she had never had, a future. "There's one more thing," Ashley said. She took a photo from her purse. It was an old photo, in black and white, of a woman dancing. "This was my mother, 40 years ago," Ashley explained. "I found it in her things, and I want you to have it." Consuelo looked at the photo. A young Eleanor, beautiful, full of life, her feet in motion, her smile huge, her whole body expressing joy before the pain took it all away. "Keep it," Ashley requested, "so you remember who the woman you care for really is. Not a patient, not a sick old woman, a dancer, a teacher, a woman who lived with intensity before life knocked her down." Consuelo took the photo with trembling hands, and for the first time, Ashley saw something in her eyes. Not gratitude, not surprise, recognition, as if she was seeing her own mother in that photo. That night, Ashley did something she hadn't done in years. She stayed home, no work, no checking emails, no business calls. She sat next to her mother's bed and simply was there. And when Consuelo arrived at 3 in the morning, Ashley was waiting for her, not to supervise, not to observe, to learn. "Teach me," Ashley pleaded. "Teach me to care for her the way you do." And Consuelo, for the first time in 3 years, smiled openly. That night, 2 pairs of hands cared for Eleanor. Consuelo's hands, which knew the pain because they had felt it, and Ashley's hands, which were finally learning that love cannot be delegated. Eleanor woke up. For a moment, she looked at her daughter, sitting next to her. She looked at Consuelo, on the other side, And although the pain was still there, although the fibromyalgia would never disappear, something was different. She was no longer alone. A tear fell down her cheek, but it wasn't from pain. It was from something she hadn't felt in years. Happiness. Now, let me tell you where they are today. It's been 6 months since that night. Eleanor still has fibromyalgia. The disease didn't disappear. There was no miracle cure. The bad nights still exist, but there are fewer, much fewer. She now sleeps full nights, 3 or 4 times a week. Something that was once impossible. And when she has bad nights, she no longer faces them alone. Consuelo still works at the Carter estate. She keeps cleaning. She keeps caring, but now she does it with her head held high. She is no longer invisible. Everyone in the house knows who she is, what she does, what she means to Eleanor, and they treat her with the respect she always deserved. Ashley reduced her work hours. She sold part of her company, delegated responsibilities. She stopped chasing the next million to chase something more important, time with her mother. She now spends 3 nights a week at the Carter estate. Sometimes she accompanies Consuelo on the late-night sessions. Sometimes she simply sits next to her mother and tells her about her day. And Nurse Emily, the nurse who discovered everything. She wrote an article for a medical journal, not about treatment, not about medications, about the power of non-professional care, about what the hands of a loved one can do when medicine fails. The article went viral. Thousands of nurses shared it. Doctors commented on it. Families of patients with chronic pain read it, crying, because it was the truth that everyone suspected. But no one dared to say that sometimes the best treatment doesn't come in a pill. It comes in a hug, in a song, in hands that massage tired feet. At 3 in the morning, 2 weeks ago, Eleanor did something she hadn't done in 4 years. She danced, not standing up. Yes, not with complicated steps, not the way she used to, but sitting in her bed, moving her arms, counting the steps with her fingers, humming the music that Consuelo played every night she danced. And everyone in the room cried. Ashley, Consuelo, Emily, the other nurses. They cried because they were seeing a miracle. Not a miracle of healing. The fibromyalgia was still there, but a miracle of spirit, of a woman who had found a way to dance despite the pain, of returning to be who she was despite everything she had lost. And that miracle had a name: Consuelo. Let me finish with something Eleanor said. Last week, Emily asked her how she was feeling. She expected the usual answer about the pain and the medications and the treatments, but Eleanor said something different. She gave me back something. The doctors couldn't, Eleanor replied. Emily asked, "What?" Hope, Eleanor said. A single word, but a word that sums up everything. Because that's what true care gives. It doesn't cure. It doesn't eliminate the pain. It doesn't fix what is broken, but it gives hope. The hope that someone is there. The hope that you are not alone. The hope that tomorrow may be a little better than today. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes That's all we need to keep going. If you know someone who suffers from fibromyalgia or any chronic pain, share this video with them. Not because it will cure them, but because maybe it will remind them that they are not alone, that there are hands in the world that know what pain is, and that those hands sometimes can do what medicine cannot. And if you are that person, who cares, without expecting anything in return, if you are someone's consuelo, if you're spending sleepless nights caring for someone you love, I want you to know something. What you're doing matters, even if no one sees it, even if no one thanks you, even if you sometimes feel it's not enough. It matters because there are wounds that only love can heal, and you are healing wounds every day. In the pinned comment, I've left a question for you. Do you know someone who suffers from fibromyalgia? Who is that person who cares without expecting anything in return? Tell us their story, because every story deserves to be told, and every caregiver deserves to be seen. Thank you for staying until the end. If this video touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who cares for a sick person, someone who suffers in silence, someone who needs to remember they are not alone. And if you want to see more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because every week we bring you stories of extraordinary people. People no one sees, but who do the impossible. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue telling stories of extraordinary people. People who clean houses and heal hearts. Invisible people who do the impossible. People like Connie. And maybe people like you.